richest country in the world. 10th United States of America. USA preserving its pinnacle position of world's richest country from 1960 to 2023. It is home to several major global corporations and financial institutions. The USA's GDP per capita ranks among the highest in the world, which reflects its high standard of living. The USA's stock markets, such as the New York Stock Exchange, are some of the largest and most influential globally. The country's vast natural resources and agriculture productivity support its economic prosperity. Second, China. China has the second largest economy in the world, following the USA, with a high nominal GDP. It is a global economic powerhouse and a major player in international trade and manufacturing. China's rapid economic growth has been fueled by industrialization, urbanization and export-oriented policies. China is a leading exporter of goods, including electronics, machinery, textiles and consumer products, which accelerate its economic growth. Second, Japan. Japan has the third largest economy in the world, following USA and China with a high nominal GDP. Japan is known for its advanced technological and industrial prowess, contributing to the economic growth. Japan is a global leader in manufacturing, particularly in the automotive and electronics sector. The nation's efficient infrastructure and transportation networks support its economic activities. Fourth, Germany. The German economy places a strong emphasis on exporting and is well known for its precision in industries such as engineering, automotive, chemicals and pharmaceuticals. It benefits from a skilled workforce, robust R&D efforts and a strong dedication to promoting innovation. Fifth, India. In the 2023 global GDP rankings, India holds the fifth position. India's economy is marked by its diversity and rapid expansion, primarily driven by critical sectors like IT services, agriculture and manufacturing. The country leverages its vast domestic market, a young and tech-savvy workforce and a growing middle class to fuel its economic growth. Sixth, Qatar. Qatari citizen was over $143,222. 1 year later, it plunged significantly and remained below the $100,000 mark for the next 5 years. However, that figure has gradually grown, increasing by about $10,000 each year. Still, Qatar's oil, gas and petrochemical reserves are so large and its population so small, just 3 million, that this marvel of ultramodern architecture, luxury shopping malls and fine cuisine has managed to stay atop the list of the world's richest nations for 20 years. With only about 12% of the country's residents being Qatari nationals, the initial months of the pandemic saw COVID-19 spreading rapidly among low-income migrant workers living in crowded quarters. Quarantines, curfews and lockdowns have been imposed more than once, and yet Qatar suffered one of the highest rates of positive cases in the region. Even so, the economy has proven to be resilient. It contracted by a relatively modest 3.5% in 2020, has grown roughly by 1.5% in 2021, and grew 4.2% in 2022 thanks to greater gas and oil revenues and tourists coming to see the World Cup. Third, Singapore. The richest person living in Singapore is the founder of the medical equipment firm Mindray, Lee Exiting, whose net worth is estimated at $15.6 billion. Brothers and property developers Robert and Philip Ng are second, and Goh Cheng Liang of Weatherlam Holdings, which manufactures paints and coatings, comes in third. In fourth place with assets of about $9.6 billion, although for many years he occupied the top spot of the ranking, is Eduardo Saverin, the co-founder of Facebook, who in 2011 left the US with 53 million shares of the company and became a permanent resident of the island nation. Saverin did not choose it just for its urban attractions or natural gateways. Singapore is an affluent fiscal haven where capital gains and dividends are tax-free. But how did Singapore attract so many high-net-worth individuals? When the city-state became independent in 1965, one half of its population was illiterate. With virtually no natural resources, Singapore pulled itself up by its bootstraps through hard work and smart policy, becoming one of the most business-friendly places in the world. Today, Singapore is a thriving trade, manufacturing and financial hub, and 98% of the adult population is now literate. Unfortunately, that did not make it immune from the pandemic-driven global economic downturn. In 2020, the economy shrank by 3.9%, knocking the nation into recession for the first time in more than a decade. In 2021, Singapore's economy bounced back with 8.8% growth, but then the slowdown in China, a top trading partner, derailed the recovery. China's economic problems hit Singapore's manufacturing sector, which makes 21.6% of Singapore's total GDP, particularly hard, contracting by 6% in the first quarter of 2023. This in turn is dampening Singapore's fortunes, with its economy projected to expand by just 1.5% in 2023. Second, Luxembourg. You can visit Luxembourg for its castles and beautiful countryside, its cultural festivals or gastronomic specialties. Or you could just set up an offshore account through one of its banks and never set foot in the country again. Doing so would be a pity. Situated at the very heart of Europe, this nation of close to 650,000 has plenty to offer, both to tourists and citizens. Luxembourg uses a large share of its wealth to deliver better housing, healthcare and education to its people, who by far enjoy the highest standard of living in the Eurozone. While the global financial crisis and pressure from the EU and OECD to reduce banking secrecy may have had little impact on Luxembourg's economy, the coronavirus While the global financial crisis and pressure from the EU and OECD to reduce banking secrecy may have had little impact on Luxembourg's economy, the coronavirus outbreak forced many businesses to close and cost workers their jobs. But the country has weathered the pandemic better than most of its European neighbors. Its economy rebounded from -0.8% growth in 2020 to 5.1% growth in 2021. Unfortunately, that rebound did not last long. The economy grew by just 1.5% in 2022 and will likely reach only 1.1% this year thanks to lower business and consumer confidence and higher prices for energy and food. Weak economic growth may not be worth complaining about though, given that Luxembourg topped the $100,000 mark in per capita GDP in 2014 and has never looked back ever since. Macau SAR. Just a few years ago, many were betting that the Las Vegas of Asia was on its way to becoming the richest nation in the world. Formerly a colony of the Portuguese Empire, the gaming industry was liberalized in 2001. This special administrative region of the People's Republic of China has seen its wealth growing at an astounding pace. With a population of about 700,000, and more than 40 casinos spread over a territory of about 30 square kilometers, this narrow peninsula just south of Hong Kong became a money-making machine. That, at least, was until the machine started losing money rather than making it. When COVID struck, global traveling came to a halt, and for a while Macau even slipped out of the 10 richest nations ranking. Today, after more than 3 years since the start of the pandemic, Macau is slowly returning to business as usual. Yet, it also is the only country on the list whose per capita purchasing power is lower than before the global health emergency. It was about $125,000 in 2019, down by more than $35,000 today. First, Ireland. A nation of just 5 million inhabitants, the Republic of Ireland was one of the hardest hit by the 2008 financial crisis. Following politically difficult reform measures like deep cuts to public sector wages and restructuring its banking industry, the island nation regained its fiscal health, boosted its employment rates and saw its per capita GDP grow exponentially. However, context is important. Ireland is one of the world's largest corporate tax havens, which benefits multinationals far more than it benefits the average Irish person. Halfway through the 2010s, many large U.S. firms, Apple, Google, Microsoft, Meta and Pfizer to name a few, moved their fiscal residence to Ireland to benefit from its low corporate tax rate of 12.5%, one of the most attractive in the developed world. In 2022, these multinationals accounted for about 56% of the total value added to the Irish economy, up from 53% in 2021, according to figures from the Central Statistics Office. Nevertheless, Ireland plans to align its minimum corporate tax rate to the global standard of 15% in 2024. Although Irish families are undoubtedly better off than they used to be, the national household per capita disposable income is slightly lower than the overall EU average according to data from the OECD. With a considerable gap between the richest and poorest, the top 20% of the population earns almost 5 times as much as the bottom 20%. Most Irish citizens would likely balk at the idea that they are not just rich but the richest in the world.